good value. Okay, welcome everybody. Today is Tuesday, April the 16th. This is Dallas Personal Robotics Group Robot Builders Night Virtual. We're going to join the meeting that kind of morphed into a start from a kind of a catch up and say hi to everybody. So we're going to pick up on a conversation and then join in the normal queue. And then just put the queue into the chat here, and then we'll rejoin the ongoing conversation. So there's the queue in chat. We have a bunch of questions and some industry news, as you can see. And then the question that's going on right now is kind of around a topic on motors. Ray showed his robot base with rather hefty-looking, beefy motors compared to the wheel size, and that led to a discussion of different motor brushless combination option things. And with that, John, if you could, I think we'll repaste your link that you had.
Yeah, I'm going to drop another one. That okay. One's all the lettering's all Chinese or something, so I'm going to drop one that actually has English.
Yeah, I was going to say, how can you tell what's going on that website?
Yeah, so look at that one. That one actually has real text. But yeah, so this is a brushless gear motor. It has a gearbox, and it's got a controller built in. I mean, it's a lot more expensive than the things that we've been playing with, but continuous torque of 4 Newton meters and peak torque of 12 Newton meters. That's pretty phenomenal. That's getting up close to what the Micro Cheetah motors can do. Those are around 16 to 20 Newton meter peak torque ones. So yeah, this has got a 7.75 to 1 gear reduction, and but I mean, it's big too. It's 80 and a half millimeters. I mean, that's almost 3 inches in a little more than 3 inches in diameter. But for an actuator that has a built-in gearbox and a built-in controller, that's a pretty decent price, considering what it would cost to put something like that together yourself.
So that has the controller built into it, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, I mean, if you look at the specs, it has the communication baud rate, 1 megabit per second.
Yeah.
And it's optimized motor control algorithm, precise and fast closed loop speed and position. So it's the pictures are all mostly Chinese lettering, but the spec list at least is in English on this link, and yeah, it looks pretty decent. I mean, some of the guys apparently on the Simple Fock Discord group have been trying to basically take this particular actuator and run the Simple Fock library on it, which would be interesting to see.
I love these websites. They only show you one side of the motor, so you can't really see what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, you can sort of, if you look carefully at the picture, you can see just on the back side, you can see a little connector there, and there's a thing sticking out where the controller is.
Yeah.
They kind of make the pictures really dark. And I don't know if they're doing that on purpose or not, but it's definitely the case. It certainly looks like it has a built-in controller. So,
wow, that's a pretty good buy if it does.
Yeah, although there's another guy who's selling the same thing, $300 and some odd bucks. So, different people are selling these for different prices, but it appears to be the same one.
And this hints at a CAN interface? Huh.
I'm not sure what kind of interface it has. It doesn't seem to. It certainly doesn't. I mean, it says it's a megabit, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Communication method CAN. Oh yeah. So maybe it is a CAN interface.
Yeah, that's 4 Newton meters is like 35.4 inch-pounds of torque.
Yeah, well, that's continuous. The peak torque is the interesting one. That's the, right at stall kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is what everybody measures on these things to compare them.
Yeah, that's 106.2 inch-pounds.
Yeah.
That's pretty hefty.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this would be perfectly reasonable for building like a robot dog, a spot like, a little bit smaller, obviously, but something like that.
That's kind of how they listed it. They mentioned it, exoskeleton somewhere on here.
Yeah.
So looks like it's got an encoder with a single absolute value.
Yeah, it's built in. I mean, 296 RPM maximum speed, which is, not, it's not great for a motor driver, but for an actuator, that's fantastic.
But I think, well, if we used it for wheels on our rovers, that would get up and go pretty quickly, wouldn't it?
300 RPM, yeah. I mean, it depends on what size your wheels are. If you had, let's say if you had 4-inch wheels,
yeah.
I mean, it's not that hard to do the math here. So if you've got 4-inch wheels, the circumference of that is 4 times pi.
Yeah.
Which is going to be about 12 and a half. And then at 300 RPMs, that's 5 revolutions a second.
Yeah.
So that would be about 62 inches per second. So yeah, that's
5 feet a second. That's hauling.
Is that RPM before the reduction, the gear reduction?
No, that's the final output RPM. These motors run they run like 2,000 RPM normally when you're running them. I mean, that's at 24. I don't know if that's at 24 volts or running at 12 volts or whatever, but still, it's, 5 feet a second is pretty fast for I mean, my little RC rock crawler will go that fast. Actually, it'll go quite a bit faster than that, but quite a bit, but it'll go faster than that. But it's definitely fast enough. But
the other question I had, the AS 5600.
Mm-hmm.
Have you come across some that just seem to brick?
I haven't, but I mean, I've only used a few of them. And it's kind of a cheap sensor, and it's not a recommended sensor because of the fact that it's I2C, especially if you're using SimpleFOC, the library. The problem is that you can't get the data off it fast enough in I2C, especially if you're talking to 2 of them.
Yeah.
And so that's why they recommend the SPI version of that. I have one here, this little guy here. And it's a I forget what it is off the top of my head, but it's an AS5048A.
488, yeah, I got some of
so that's an SPI. That's one that has an SPI interface, so you can pull the data off that at like a ridiculously high speed.
Yeah.
So that's the one that they recommend to use for like serious applications. So yeah.
Yeah, I ordered some of the 5047Ps. They're a lot more than the AS 5600s.
Oh yeah, price wise, yeah, they're like $15 each or something. They're definitely not cheap.
Yeah, I think I get these for $6.37.
But you said it was a 5047, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I don't know if it's not the same part number, but
right as the 48. Yeah. That you ordered. Yeah, or got.
I've used one of the 5600s using the I2C interface in a weather station anemometer, and it worked quite satisfactorily. It was
it just depends on how fast you need to run your main loop. Like the SimpleFOC guys like to run their main loop at like 5 to 10 kilohertz. So they want to be pulling readings off the sensor at that rate. And the I2C just can't keep up with that, or it's right at the ragged edge of keeping up at that rate.
My rate was probably a few times a second.
Yeah, and it's perfectly reasonable for doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I heard some of the guys were upping the I2C clock to a megahertz.
Yeah, the 5600 supports megahertz I2C, but it's you're kind of pushing the limit, and once you start getting up into those speeds, you have to start being more concerned about the pull-up resistors and line noise and stuff like that. With I2C. It's not a great protocol for that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
SPI is far superior for high-speed communication.
Yeah.
You're pushing the limit with I2C, and you're just scratching the surface with SPI at a megahertz.
Yeah. Yeah, the sensors were. I think you said your AS5600s, you couldn't get the pulse width modulation out. You couldn't.
You can. It doesn't work very well because you can't read the Attendees that fast.
Mm.
So there you're really stuck with, or really limited by, most microcontrollers have, relatively speaking, crappy Attendees. And so you're really limited by that, and the resolution isn't as good as far as I know as well. I've used it in PWM mode and it works, but it works better in I2C mode, and the library supports it kind of. But like I said, with that particular sensor, you have to make sure that you pull the PG0 pin either high or low if you're going to use I2C.
Yep. Yeah, it looked like there was a P version and a D version of the 5047. And I think the D version, if you held the, let's see which one, the MOSI, let's see, MI, master in, MOSI. If you held it high, you could read the encoder value, I guess there's probably some other name for it, but whatever the encoder counts were directly. So you didn't do, put in an address for a register and read it and then wait for a response back and all that stuff. So, but I think you couldn't use the PWM output on the D version. I guess it maybe set up so it just wouldn't work or something. I don't know, but
yeah, I haven't played with that sensor, so I don't know. And I bought a couple of the 5048s, but I haven't done anything with them yet.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Too many robots, not enough time.
That's a universal problem, I think.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ray, so was that that cover your question then, or?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Then here's the chat as it stands. So we have next, Mike has a question, Chris has a question, although there's some answers in Slack. Maybe Chris will just talk about it anyhow, get clarity. And then I have two industry news items and then open mic. So Mike W., what have you got?
If you could put me on the end of that list after you, Carl.
Okay, sure. Yep.
Yeah. Well, John's keeping us busy, and I put together my own. I downloaded the code and got it running on here on this thing. So
Nice.
It's running John's interface.
Nice.
And I also made a couple files, a couple tests that did like a hello for this thing using just the basic display library.
Yeah.
And also John's display library. So I'll show those if I can. Let me see. Here it is. See if it works. I guess it seems to work.
Yep.
And I don't know how to make it bigger.
What's that? The text?
Yeah, in this application, I don't know how to make it bigger.
So the text the text size is the font size. So if you want to make a bigger font, you would have to make a bigger font. And the description for making fonts is.
Oh, I'm talking about on this file.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about.
Yeah.
No, completely readable.
Okay.
Readable
So this
for me.
is this is my just using the basic library that's baked into the firmware image.
Yeah.
And so I just imported the I guess the library information about that.
That's Russ Hughes' library.
Right, and I used his font file.
Yeah.
And that was on his website, on his Git, and I took these out of John's display code.
Yeah.
And then I initialized it, and then I basically. Down here, I filled the screen with red. Then I made a circle in blue, and then put Robo24 in white in the very center, and it worked pretty good. So basically, once you get it all set up and initialized, which isn't that much, then you can actually do something using the basic library, which is nice.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I did a similar one using John's library. His information, and so I used his utility library and his display library and his 32 size font, and so basically I initialized the theme, which was needed before you called the display library, and then I drew the circle. When you initialize it, it goes to a color. I can't remember what it is, but it's
black.
It's black. Oh, yeah. And then
what it is, it's the background color that the theme specifies, and that's why you have to load the theme first, because the theme is what specifies all of the colors.
Right. And then I put a circle in the middle, and then I put the words hello on it. So I was just learning how to use the basic libraries, which was nice. And so I felt comfortable enough to go to his big application and try to get it running. So at least I knew all the hardware was working, and I could wiggle around the software. That was good.
Yeah. I mean, I did stuff like that too when I was starting. That's exactly what I did. I had your like something like your GC whatever hello. And then that eventually morphed into display.py, and then I built code to use that and test it and whatever, and then I started writing the application.
Yeah. So the files are real simple to get just hello working. So I was happy about that. It took me a long time to figure it out, but I was happy once it ran.
So do they have like widgets that are, you can pull up something that displays a certain variable or plots a couple of variables on a chart?
Yeah, it's got labels and buttons and lists and stuff like that. So you can display and yeah, I mean, so that's an example. You can see there's actually 3 labels in the middle: universal robot configurer, and then there's a label battery, and then there's another label with a box around it, which shows the actual voltage of the battery, which is pretty high because he's got it plugged into USB. And then there's a final label at the bottom that disappears. If you're running off battery and you pull the USB plug, that charging in red goes away.
After it's charged.
I've ordered the battery and it goes in right there. once I get it.
You may need to order a different connector. Like all the batteries that I've gotten have have like this JST connector that they come with, which is too big. So if you look at the difference, so this is the JST connector that most of these batteries come with, and this is the one that the display module wants.
So when I ordered the battery, I made sure it was the JST 1.25.
Yeah.
There's not that many available.
No. And that's, I just ordered the battery and cut. I mean, you can see, I actually snip the leads and do that. If you're going to do that, by the way, for anybody who hasn't played with lithium polymer batteries, you cut the leads one at a time. You don't cut them both at the same time.
Right.
Or you just fry your battery instantly.
Right. And so I was using Git to get this stuff off of John's repository. And of course I just said, I read some of the basics and then started fingering it. And I did a really terrible job. And thank goodness I can't change his repository because I almost wiped it.
Well, you ended up submitting a push request that I canceled because it was basically going to make my library unusable. So, but that's okay.
So thanks, John, for protecting us.
Yeah.
And so,
no, like I say, with GitHub, you have to explicitly give somebody permission to modify your repository. And I haven't given anybody permission to modify my repository other than me. So that's not a problem. You can't touch it.
So I spent a day trying to learn more about Git before I did everything I did and trying to start from scratch. And so I'm looking for the usage model we should use for this type of a application. And I think what I'm understanding is I have a GitHub account, and so I fork in it your repository.
Yeah.
And then I can download it to my computer. Huh?
You want to clone your version of your forked version of the repository to your local machine for development.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then I was going, is it a good idea or preferred idea to branch off of my main version of yours, the thing I want to work on?
I think Doug P is the right person to answer that question. I'm like I said, I'm not a Git expert by any stretch of the imagination. I've lived most of my life in Smalltalk, and we don't use Git. So it's Git is still kind of arcane black magic to me as well, even though I use it. But I follow the XKCD model of Git. I posted a little cartoon in the Discord. It says, "This is Git. It tracks collaboratively work on projects through a beautiful distributed graph theory tree model." And the other person says, "Cool, how do we use it?" And the first guy says, "No idea. Just memorize these shell commands and type them to sync up. If you get errors, save your work elsewhere, delete the project, and download a fresh copy."
Right.
And that's probably 90% of the people who use Git follow that model.
Yeah. So I figured I would fork it, clone it, and then create a branch for me. And then every once in a while, I guess when I need to, I can sync with yours.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And that's the model that you want to follow from what Doug P said.
Well, then there's another thing too. So then so you've done the right thing by, I think, from my view of Mike, of forking it and then cloning it, because by doing that, it maintains all the references. So that means the copy of the repo on your local can find its way back to your original fork, and it even knows somehow the original reference back to John. So if, for example, you found some kind of bug or issue or wonderful opportunity improvement opportunity, you could create like a feature branch on your local. Or first of all, what you would do is you would pull the latest code from John's, you would merge it with yours, you resolve any conflicts in case both he and you have modified the same file. Then you would take that as a starting point. You'd make a new branch, and then you'd add the super new improvement opportunity in that branch. You'd make sure it works, and then one way or another, you would make a pull request to wind its way back to John's repo.
Yeah.
And what that does is give John the ability to review your change and decide if he likes it or not, and then he can play Caesar and summarily, accept it and bridge it into his main, or just off with the head and send it off to the lions.
Yeah, and that's what Mike accidentally did yesterday.
Yeah. So I did find I had to modify 2 files to actually get the thing to work. I'm gonna sort of show it, and
I sorry about the window.py thing. I thought I'd fixed that, and apparently I didn't, or it got back into there somehow. So the proper version is out there now.
Yeah. So in the rover window.py, you had just from secret.
The point of that.
We changed it to example secret.
Yeah, I know, but the point of that is you would make your own secret.py file based on that one and put your actual information in it.
Okay.
So then you're not
as they are.
The idea behind those kinds of things is you put secret.py in your .gitignore file. There's a file that you can put in your repo called .gitignore, and that allows you to specify files that won't get uploaded and published when you do a commit and a push. Because you don't, like if you put in your Wi-Fi user SSID and password, you don't want that being published on GitHub. So that gives the author a mechanism to have secrets that don't end up going up onto GitHub. And I provided example secret which you see right there as a template for where you would actually put the MAC addresses for your devices.
Mm-hmm.
So example secret is, it's not intended to be part of the project. It's a template. So you would create your own secret.py based on that.
Right. Yeah, but since this doesn't do any telemetry yet, it doesn't really use it, but it was required to get it to compile. So doing right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's good. Good news. Stop presenting. So that's sort of what I was doing on Git, and that took up a lot of my free time is just getting this thing working, which I'm happy I did. So now I can create my own branch and do my own thing now.
And that's the whole idea behind this is you look at Rover window and ROS window and TT robot window, and the idea is you replace those with your own.
Right.
And
so one thing I did is I created a folder, a directory, and with links to the URC files that were needed for the project. So I can just say, click on that and do a sync to the processor.
Right.
And before I was modifying, deleting stuff so that I could do a good sync. I said, that's a crappy way to do it. So I just made some files with links on them.
If you use our shell, it just does it all automatically.
Oh yeah, if you say sync this folder with the.
I just say rsync dot and then / pyboard.
Right.
It'll just
but I figured
everything from your local directory to the device.
Yeah, but I decided I wanted to do that from the link folder so that I don't put all the other crap on it. Maybe I'm just being overly cautious.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah. So it looks like I'm heading the right direction now, which is good. Yeah, and then I was getting back to my robot, and 6CAN works so okay. Decided to try to implement the 4-corner and the quick trip by putting waypoints and then putting some code in there to run them. And I realized I needed to disable the SLAM that basically tries to adjust the odometry based on where the wall positions are, because they don't exist in those applications.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out how can I change a parameter in one node from another node, because the SLAM node does it, and the other node is where I'm changing modes. And so I haven't figured a way to actually use parameters and adjust. I found that I could use OS system and give it a system command, but that is really, well, I could do a system command because there is a command line to change the parameters, a ROS2 command line. So I could do, so I created a command line, and then I loaded it, or I sent it to the system using os.system, and it actually changed the parameter. But it seems like a real, don't want to say dangerous, but it's not the way you should do it.
So there's a parameters tutorial in the ROS2 tutorial section. If you look at that, it'll give you C and Python examples of how to set parameters.
Yeah, but if you read it, it says parameters are only in locally in a node, and they're not really made to be controlled by another node. So you can't. I mean, I think you can read them, but you can't set them from another node. I couldn't find any ROS command except for the command line to change the variable.
You would change them by sending a message, by sending a service request.
Yeah, but I haven't got service requests to work because I don't know how to do async yet. Yeah.
Service requests are synchronous.
I thought it required an async.
No.
Because it has a feedback coming back that says it worked or not.
Yeah, but the caller suspends while it's waiting for the response, for the query to go out and the response to come back.
Yeah, but I couldn't figure out how to get that into my code structure. It seemed like I had to be in the. Yeah, I couldn't figure it out. Yeah, when I worked on it for a few days, and so I said, "Oh, I'm going to not do that for a while." So it's something that I would like to figure out how to do without, because I basically have like the main module. I mean inside of a file, the node file, you got the class, and then you got a main module, and that's where the spin is done in the main module. But I couldn't figure out how to do all that stuff up in the class. And all the examples I saw were down in the spin and the main module, and I haven't quite cracked that nut how to put it where I want to put it up in the class. So basically, so I could send a command from the rest of the code without. I just couldn't figure it out. But I can imagine that there must be a way to do it.
Why couldn't you make you a node that sends out a config whenever any config changes, subscribe to it with your other nodes that care about it, and when that topic posted a message, just open it up and go, oh, there's a variable I care about. I'm going to change my config to match whatever that just came through on that config, and I update myself to change what mode I'm in. So I turn my SLAM on or off.
Yeah, I was thinking of using subscribe and publish to do it because I know how to make that work. Yeah.
Yeah, then do it.
Yeah. But I figured there's a quote unquote better way to do it using the actions and stuff.
I'm gonna tell you my theory. The best way to do it is the one that works right now, and then you'll figure out better way to do it after that. But it not working versus not working, I'm going to vote for working, no matter what it looks like.
Yeah, because I was going to do that, subscribe and publish to do that, and I know that will work. It's just a little. I just like publish and subscribe doesn't really have reliability in mind, as far as I can tell. But I can make it work. So that's what I was going to do because I couldn't figure out the quote real way to do it. So that was my other thing on ROS is node-to-node parameter configuration, and so it looks like Harold's thinking my way. He's like, oh, use subscribe and publish, and Paul's saying you can do it using actions and stuff, and I haven't figured that one out.
Well, I just looking through the tutorials, you're right. They don't have an example of how to change it from another node using some API. But I'm just thinking about what parameters are really for. Parameters are sort of staticky things that you set, and you might change them sometimes under like intentional control, like by a human, but they're not like a set point or a dynamic kind of variable, control variable.
Yeah, they seem to be like you can use your launch file to set them. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why aren't you using launch files?
Well, I want to launch my whole thing, and then using buttons on this to modify the modem in, which has to go and disable stuff.
So they're not startup parameters.
Right. So it's basically I want to start up the thing automatically when you turn power on and not have a connection to it. Not have a Wi-Fi connection or something to start it up and give it a launch file. And so at that point I got to somehow control from one node to another. And parameters was what I thought would work, but as you dig, it's just not designed that way. So there's other ways to do it, which we talked about, the subscribe, publish, and the actions and stuff like that. So I can make it work. Just wondered if someone has done it. So that's basically what I'm up to, and that's it.
Good question. Good question. It really is, Mike, and I don't know the answer.
Well, we'll figure it out. Like I said, I'm gonna probably do Harold's approach, but I like to do the more sophisticated approach.
Okay, so let me just share this.
Yeah, because I'm doing a lot of ROS work, but it's basically I got to search and try to figure stuff out as I go, and then I forget everything and have to relearn it. So
Yeah.
it's pretty complicated.
So this is Mike Ferguson's ROS cookbook, and in here he says all parameters can be dynamically updated through a ROS2 service, so there's no need to define duplicate stuff, which you used to have to do with dynamic reconfigure in ROS1. So here they declare a parameter, they set on parameters callback, and then when the parameter callback is given, then they change the parameter. And for an example of calling the set parameter service, points to this ROS answers. Something that will send a request and set self.future equal to self.cli.callAsync self.request. So that's where they do the remote call from the remote node to send the service request to change the parameter. If I can post that first link to Mike's cookbook page on parameters in the chat, and that would hopefully lead you to an interesting place.
Yeah. I went through. I saw that, but I didn't really think it was a solution. But maybe that is the key, is to pay more attention to that.
But yeah, I think you really got to ask yourself, what's the difference between a parameter and a service and a state, an internal state that's changed by a service call?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it can be used, because you can have like I said, you can have a callback when it changes, so that you can actually go, oh, something changed, I got to update something.
Right.
So it's more than just a static thing, but yeah. Okay, so maybe I should have lingered more on that page and tried to get it to work instead of going, it looks too complicated.
But I think the real question is that even are parameters the right approach? And it's not clear to me that a piece of dynamic state should be called a parameter.
Yeah. Because when you're reading the ROS, it says, this is not intended the way that ROS is designed for, but it can be done.
Yeah.
Just like using publish and subscribe to do an action item or something. It's not designed for that. It's not intended for that, but it can be done.
Right.
So.
Okay, cool. Good questions, Mike. Thank you. So next we had in queue Chris with a question. I have 2 industry news items. Then we have Paul. Then we have open mic. And Chris, I'm just going to copy and paste the chat from earlier to prompt it for you, but I'll let you lead it off if you like. And then it sounds like there could be some interesting discussion in there, people's experiences.
Yeah. I mean, basically my question is, what's the right way to AliExpress, right, to make purchases? I've never made one, so I've also never really had any problems just using my credit card online, but, I just don't know if I need to be extra worried with AliExpress. So that's why I'm asking. I guess people are saying use a card that's dedicated for this, with a low limit, and I was just Googling, virtual card numbers that you get with some of your real cards. So there seem to be some options out there, but, so what's the dominant, most popular option for you guys to make purchases without getting into trouble?
I just use PayPal.
I see Tom said credit card with a low limit. Pat said PayPal with 2FA. Ray said PayPal. I use PayPal, but it ties back to an account on my bank that doesn't have overdraft protection. So it won't pull from the main account, and we just keep, $1,000 in it or something, something that it's not going to deplete the main account owing to overdraft protection.
Okay. And you have two-factor authentication enabled on PayPal?
Yeah.
So even with that enabled, you're suggesting you may still want to make sure transactions can't kind of pull too much money.
Here's the thing with Ally. Ally is like Amazon. It's a center clearinghouse with a whole pile of individual stores, quote unquote, that are really just little factories and people selling out of their backyards and whatever.
Right.
But Ally is the one who handles the monetary transaction. You are not talking to any of those guys. You are talking to Ally. And I mean, I've ordered thousands of dollars worth of stuff off of Ally and never once had an issue. They're always prompt with like refunds or fixing things or whatever. It's a fantastic service. And and because of the fact that you're dealing with the central clearinghouse, there's virtually, as far as I'm concerned, there's a very, very low chance of anything funny happening with your credit card, even if they could get it through PayPal or whatever.
Yeah, the PayPal thing is relatively new because I remember before having to give a credit card number, and I did not like that. So nothing ever happened. But, since it seems like some of the vendors would accept PayPal, some wouldn't. And but now I haven't found anybody that doesn't accept PayPal. So
Yeah.
I had the same thing from Ally. They did not accept PayPal. They wanted a credit card, but we had already established an isolated credit card we would use only for online purchases of any type. And that seemed to work well. Then they eventually got around to accepting PayPal. And because I occasionally buy from eBay, then I had already linked a credit card to my PayPal account. My PayPal account is not linked to anything else. A long time ago, I had it originally linked to a bank account, and then I said, that is stupid. And I severed that link. So PayPal is standalone except for the credit card link. I use it to receive money from people that I sell stuff to online, and they need a way to send me money before I send the goods to them. And I worked too long in IT security. I will not do online banking. I will not do email transfers, especially in Canada. The security is so bad.
Okay.
That's weird because Canada is the testing ground for all new technologies in banking that go to the US.
Yeah, but Pat, I don't think it's weird at all. Just read the news and see how bad it is. over again.
The world is full of idiots.
And I don't intend to be one of them.
I lost my life savings because somebody sent me a text and I thought it was the bank. You just look and you shake your head and okay, come on. But I agree. That's why we have a $500 credit card that, try to do damage on that thing.
I was very surprised. I have occasionally had my credit card abused in other ways. And I was very, very surprised that I did with my very low limit credit card when it was being used to rent rooms at a hotel in Central America one day. It got up to $10,000 before they bothered to tell me.
Whoa.
Are you serious that the fraud agency didn't catch that and alert you?
They did, but not until it got to $10,000.
Really?
And that's way, way, way above the limit.
We get texts all the time for some $35 card charge declined, and was that us or not? So we hit yes, and then it goes through. But they trap it even before it's attempted to charge. The only time we've had an issue was there was a gas station in Kansas, and swiped the card, had to do it twice to get it to pay for some reason. Next thing we know, the card doesn't work anymore. And someone had lifted it and swiped it.
Yeah, that's twice I had my card's data stolen, and it was both times at a gas station.
Yeah.
So,
Probably skimmers, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's just
on the pump.
But those were probably skimmers, but those were the day of mag strips now, right? So nowadays you've got the smart card in there based on the global platform. chip with this secure element. And from my understanding, the transaction doesn't occur until there's like a mutual authentication between the chip and your card through the untrusted middleman internet to the servers in the back end that process payments.
Yeah. Carl, that's what the automakers said when they said, nobody can break the encryption on our remote starter for your car. Nobody. Look how long that lasted.
I didn't say nobody. I'm just following along with Pat that, they're going to go the path of least resistance. So when Pat takes his MagStrip credit card, they're going to go for him instead of the.
Yeah, so the ones they tried to get were from, it was on a machine with, I inserted the credit card, but I think what happened is he says, oh, you got a credit card? I'll go get the machine. And I gave him my credit card and he went to get the machine. And so I stepped out of the car and he was in the little kiosk figuring, okay, I got to go there and punch in my PIN. And then he hands me the machine with my card in it. So he went and swiped my card somewhere, took the data off of it. And then he was trying to watch me punch the pin in on the machine.
See, and I've heard that's a noticeable difference between the U.S. and Europe, at least, in that in the U.S. we don't think much about handing our card over to somebody, and it just disappears, and they swipe it at the cash register, and it comes back to us later in a cute little plate. But if you go to Europe, and who would ever hand their card to somebody else? No way. They bring the damn thing to your table. You put it then and there. No one's going to touch your card because that's your key.
Carl, same thing in Canada.
Canada does the same
I
thing.
will not give my card to somebody who's going to walk away with it anymore because there's no longer any reason for it.
No.
Yeah, exactly. It's all evolved to the point of sale is where you're standing.
Yeah, it's where you're standing. And now, so the risk, I think, is well, as long as cards still have that MagStrip on them, there's still that risk. But now, you got the back end infrastructure hacks, right? Because you might never even use your credit card. It might never leave your wallet, and someone can still hack your account because they'll break into the processing center in the cloud somewhere.
It's funny you mentioned that. I just got a brand new MasterCard, which is, where's my camera? It's completely blank on the front, right?
On the front, yeah.
Yeah, they all are
on the
now.
back, it's still got a mag stripe.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, I think, well, they put the mag strip on there because if you go to the US, you need it.
Tom, you realize you just put your credit card number out on the internet.
Oops.
We'll have to edit that.
Maybe you can delete that part for me, Carl.
what was that, CCV? Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, my wife had her credit card hacked, and the thief was stupid enough to buy automobile insurance with it. So they had his name, his address, pretty much everything.
Wow.
And it's kind of like, okay, do you know this person? Did you authorize this purchase? It's like, no.
Anyway, getting back to the topic at hand, Ali's a decent place to order from.
Yes, I bought a lot from them and never had any issues with Ali, and their refund policy is outstanding.
And I noticed that they seem to let you select if you want like shipping from a US-based warehouse. I mean, is that a thing, or I mean, you always just ship from China?
It's actually better to ship from China. If you ship from the US, you end up paying a ridiculous amount in duty. A lot of the stuff that comes from Ali, there's no duty on it, and unless you're buying really expensive stuff.
Certainly not in Canada.
Yeah, and so it ends up, and their delivery times are usually in the two to maybe 3 week time frame for basically free or almost free shipping. So it's reasonable.
Okay.
Just have to watch out for the Chinese New Year because they don't do anything for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That happens about 3 times a year?
Say that again?
That happens about 3 times a year, the Chinese New Year?
Oh, the Chinese New Year? I don't know. At least once a year, I know that.
Every time there's a full moon, I think. They are very good. At 65 days, if I haven't received a package from Ali, I will put in a claim. The time is expired. I did that recently on 2 motor drivers I bought, and lo and behold, the motor drivers showed up today.
That's good. Yep. Yeah.
So,
of course, 65 days. That's business days, right?
No, it's 65 days from mailing, I believe, not business.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, here I think it's business days, and it's a long time to wait for a freaking package. It's like, oh my God.
AliExpress errs on the side of the buyer. They're, did you receive it? No. What's the tracking number? And next thing you know, hey, you've won the arbitration, and it's being redeposited on your card, on your PayPal, whatever it was.
Yeah, that's my experience as well. Even when the initial retailer says, there's no way I'm giving you a refund, all you do is ignore that answer, and 3 days later, Ali gives you the refund.
Yeah. So Ali is where eBay was 15 years ago when they used to err on the side of the buyer. And they seem to have gone the other way now.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way to buy parts in Canada, really, because there are no, Micro Center down the street or anything like that. Everything is mail order, Amazon or AliExpress, or pretty much that's our options.
Yeah.
We have some choices here, but they're outrageously expensive.
Yeah, DigiKey is the only reasonable parts vendor, like actual parts vendor up here.
Yeah, I do buy occasionally from DigiKey.
And they're pricey here, from my way of thinking.
Well, the cool thing about DigiKey in Canada, DigiKey is located in Thief River Falls, Missoula, which is just south of Winnipeg, like literally, just across the border from Winnipeg. So every day they take all of the Canadian orders and they load them on trucks and they drive them across the border to the Winnipeg airport, and FedEx ships them. And we pay $8 flat rate shipping and get them. If you order by like 4 p.m., you get it by like 10 a.m. the next morning.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a sweet deal.
Yeah, really, there's no other way. When you try to order through Mauser or somebody else like that out of Canada, the shipping, the FedEx shipping is just astronomical. You're buying let's say a Raspberry Pi board, and they want $48 FedEx shipping.
Mm.
And when there was a crunch on Raspberry Pis, I bought one from DigiKey Canada, and I think I paid $13 shipping because I don't have a commercial account. If you have a commercial account, I believe it's $8.
No, that's for personal too.
I'm always getting $13 on my shipping.
Yeah.
That's your special rate, Pat.
It used to be $8.
Yeah, maybe it's changed. It's been a while.
That's the Northern Ontario rate.
Yeah. The other cool thing about DigiKey is they resell a lot of the big U.S. maker places like Adafruit and stuff like that. So if you have a part that you want, you can go to DigiKey and type in Adafruit and their 4-digit number, and they almost always have it in stock, even when like Adafruit doesn't have it in stock. DigiKey will have like 40 of them.
Yeah, they tend to buy by the hundreds or whatever, and it's usually it's reasonable cost as well. It's not hyperinflated. It's very, very close to the Adafruit price or Seed Studio price or whatever. There's a few different manufacturers they sell.
Yeah.
I was looking for the I2C translator that I believe Harold had mentioned.
The level shifter?
No, the address translator.
Oh.
And they're saying right now out of DigiKey, it's a July date for delivery, July 14th or something.
So what are you using that for?
So that's when you have a couple devices that have the same address.
No, I know what it's conceptually for. I'm saying, what are you using it for?
Oh, I was looking to use it on those ST Micro, the VL 53 sensors.
Yeah.
So the 53L1X or the 53L0X?
I have an L1X, but I've been trying to get it reliably to switch addresses when I'm booting it up, and it's been a pain.
What are you using? Are you using Arduino or MicroPython?
I'm using Arduino.
Oh, okay. I've got MicroPython code that does it 100% reliably.
Okay. And then, like I said, I was trying to do it with Arduino, and the problem is that my Arduino was 5 volts, and the
yeah, but
pin is 3.3 volts.
Right. So the other thing that's really important when you're doing that is the timing. You have to have delays between when you're like programming and when you're switching and when you pull the shutdown line and stuff like that. You need like 50 millisecond delays all over the place. So I'll actually, I think my code is up on my GitHub. Let me let me just drop a link in the chat. You can look at the MicroPython code and effectively do the same sort of thing in Arduino, and see if that works for you.
Okay, thanks, John.
Because that's what I use. Like Roz, my quad walker, I've got 5 of those in the head, and every time it powers up, it does that dance.
Why wouldn't you use a MUX? I2C MUX?
Because
I
sensor,
have a MUX, but it takes time to change addresses all the time.
The sensor has one built in. You don't need to. You basically have the I2C, the shared I2C line to each sensor and one shutdown pin for each sensor. And you can have as many as you have I/O for the shutdown lines, and it just works.
So that shutdown pin needs to be 3.3 volts.
Yeah.
So that's they make the sensor that'll work with I2C at 5 volts, but the shutdown pin has to be 3.3 volts.
So the way that stuff works in CMOS, 3.3 volts is considered high. So you could theoretically put an external pull-up resistor to 3.3 volts on that shutdown line and let it float from the microcontroller and then pull it down low to invoke shutdown.
But like an Arduino, I believe, has a weak pull-up to 5 volts.
Yeah, but you have to enable that. That's not it's not cast in stone. I mean, maybe the Arduino code set doesn't do it by default, but you can fiddle with the pin and net stuff to turn that off. Because the Arduinos are based, assuming it's an AVR based Arduino.
It's an AVR, but it would boot up with the Arduino code prior.
Right, I know, but you can still fiddle with the registers and stuff, even in the Arduino world. So you can turn that off. And and if you're using MicroPython, you can just choose. But I mean, all the MicroPython stuff runs at 3.3 volts anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, that's the other option is to take a little one of these little guys.
Yeah, an RP2040.
Little Chow RP2040, and just do that. So that's probably what I'm going to end up doing is just make turn the dump sensor into a smarter sensor.
The pin mode function in the Arduino API supports modes input, output, or input pull-up. So surely input is input without pull-up, as opposed to input pull-up.
Yeah, you have to be careful about how you wire it. But I personally, I've given up on 5 volt stuff completely. I mean, I have a bunch of 5 volt microcontrollers and I don't use them because I've switched entirely to ARM-based stuff that all runs at 3.3 volts, and all of the sensors being made now are 3.3 volt sensors. So it's kind of silly to try and shoehorn that into a 5 volt world. And these boards are so cheap. I mean, these are $5. Why wouldn't you use one?
That's why I bought a bunch of them, because exactly that. They were $5.
Yeah.
And they go on sale and you ship them. And Seed Studio even shipping was reasonable from China to Canada.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I have a bunch of them too, and they're fantastic for that sort of thing. So yeah, that's my advice is if you want to use one of those boards. The only downside to this is it has a very limited number of I/O pins on it, but there are other variants. Like you can get this one from WaveShare. This is an RP Tiny, and it has a bunch more I/O pins that the Seed one doesn't have. So it's got like 8 or 9 extra GPIO pins, and they're about the same price. You can get them from Robot Shop or directly from Waveshare or whatever. They're like $6 each, Canadian. And yeah, so using stuff like that with the time of flight sensors just makes sense. So like I'm using in RAWs, I've got it's actually an Adafruit board, but it's an STM32F405 running MicroPython. It's basically like a Pi board, but it's just in a different form factor running MicroPython, and it's what talks to all those sensors.
Yeah, that would be the plan. I haven't used MicroPython for stuff like that, but it may be a no-brainer just to.
It's just so much easier.
Yeah, it's Python is easy. There are lots of libraries.
Yeah, and like I said, I that if you look at that GitHub link that I just posted, that's a general laser class that interfaces to all 3 of the single beam ST lidars, and you basically create an instance of that and say it's for the 53L1X, and you say this is the address that I want it to have, and then you call, once you've created all of the objects, you just say set up to them, and you'll sit there and go through and reassign all their IDs, and boom, you're done. And then you can just sit there and ask it for its range.
Well, I was hoping I'm trying to buy into Adafruit's QT stemma connector to have the simple 4-wire cable going across.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, how do I hook up a bunch of those time of flight sensors to it? So I was thinking a MUX would be the right way to do it.
Yeah, so the problem with that is that the time of flight sensors, if you're using the 53L1X, you need the shutdown line as well. If you're hooking more than one to the board.
Oh, I thought a MUX board would take care of that. So
I mean, if you've got an I2C MUX board, then yeah, you could maybe use that like with a stemma connector.
Right.
That would work too. Yeah, I've never used that. I've never used a MUX board, so I can't comment on that.
Because they have a really low cost MUX, a 4 MUX or a 5 MUX. I think it's a 4 MUX or something. So you can have 4 different devices out there on a MUX board.
Is that an Adafruit part or?
Yeah, it was Adafruit board. Yeah, the module.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. They've got a 8-channel one.
Yeah, and a small 4-channel one for $4 for a couple of dollars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Seat Studio makes a bunch of adapters. They've got stemma to Grove.
We've kind of wandered off into open mic forum. I think we finished Chris's question.
Okay.
And Carl had 2 industry items, and then I had an email and other IT stuff update. And so maybe we can come back to that. Stemma connectors when we move into open mic.
Sure.
Nice catch. Thank you, Paul. So let me share my screen. It's really weird. Anyhow, so the first industry item I have is about Boston Dynamics. Apologies if you've seen these already.
Yeah.
But there's the first one. There's a link to it. I'll try and share my screen. And it looks like our friend, the humanoid robot, will no longer be maintained out there with Boston Dynamics.
Atlas.
So So I got a kick out of their Atlas Shrugged thing named after somebody's book, but might have been named after something else. But
no, that's the book by Ayn Rand.
they, yeah, you know it. But okay. So, and they had, I don't know why they had to pick that one of him stumbling and falling, but anyhow.
Oh, it's full of him stumbling and falling. The point of I see that one. The interesting thing I found from watching the actual Boston Dynamics video is of course Atlas is a hydraulic robot. It's the last of their hydraulic robots, and so they're switching. The concept is that they're switching to the next version of Atlas will be electric actuators, like Spot, in the same way that Spot is electric, and its forerunner, which was Big Dog, was hydraulic with a gas engine on it. So they're they're sticking. They're coming up with that.
Yeah.
But there's some really neat clips in the video where you can see where he blows out his knee and the hydraulic fluid just goes all over the place. And
this one? Oh, guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's great.
So did you feel some empathy for the robot then? Ever have knee problems?
Knees and ankles.
So is there going to be an Atlas sale then? Is that the get one for what, half off, 100,000 or something?
I don't think you could get one for $100,000.
Then comes the service contract. Maybe that's your trend.
Yeah, I think half off would be a couple million.
Is it that
25% off missing a leg?
Yeah.
Can you take the damaged one with the blown out knee? No.
All right. So the next one is a contest. I put this on the new DPRG listserv Google Groups version, but I'll put it in here tonight as well. So Luxonics Honest has one of these contests where a nice prize purse putting out there. And you have a week or two, I guess, to pick something that interests them, which means some kind of commercial application in one of these areas. And if you send an application that they like, it sounds like they might send you an Oak camera.
Yeah, they'll give you an Oak D Lite.
Yeah. So there's some of us on this call have participated in some of these kinds of hackathon competitions before, and they can be pretty fun. So there you go. I think you have a week or two at least to put your proposal in if you want a free camera. I don't know when the contest runs, but
it said May 24th.
Yeah. I said it on there, but it seemed like they would take applications up to the 10th. So I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure I followed the timeline of, submit a proposal, they'll send you an Oak, and then like 2 days later you can have an award-winning contest. I don't think.
Well, the idea is that they have some kind of online simulator or something for it, and if you don't actually have an Oak D already.
Yeah. All right. Okay, cool. Well, even better. Well, there you go. That's all I've got.
Nice.
Which leads then, Paul, to you, and then open mic.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. So, as many of you know, we're trying to roll out Google Groups as an email distribution platform, and I see it's being rolled out on an opt-in basis, which means you need to tell me you want to be in the server or you won't be. So I'm going to set about trying to contact everybody from my long list of people whose names and emails I've acquired, and the 82, which will overlap with the 82 emails in the old DPRG list server. But I see 3 people on this call that I didn't have on my list of email addresses, Ray and Ed, Mart, and Tom. And let me ask you guys, is there anybody here who does not get either DPRG list from the current old server or the manual copy that I make and send to people who don't get DPRG list?
I don't know.
Like,
I
you would have gotten a couple of... What?
I get neither of those.
You don't?
No.
I think I got the DPRG list emails, and I thought I responded back to you on that. Did you?
I just responded back because I realized that I got it earlier and forgot to.
Okay.
I can check, but
So, Ray, I didn't see your email. I haven't checked it since I came back from dinner. So if you just did it, then I didn't see it.
no, I didn't. No, I did it. I thought when you did it, like what, 2 weeks ago?
No, 2 days ago.
Oh, 2 days ago. Okay, no, then I have not done that.
Okay. And then Tom, I can't imagine how you're not on one of those two lists, but I'll put you on the manual, at least for now, on the manual list. And are you okay if I opt you into the new server?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
And then Ed, I don't have you on my list. Do you receive emails from either DPRG list or the manual list that I copy DPRG list messages over onto? Uh-oh, Ed's away.
Or he's just muted.
Okay. I've got his email. I'm just trying to gather all the names together and try and encourage people to respond. The next stage will be sending individual emails to groups and then to individuals, and I'll try and whittle it down. Second question, there are a couple of folks, for the most part, I'm adding people directly to the new Google group, but there are, I think, 3 people who I couldn't add directly. Pat, is Pat still in this? Yes, you're there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you see a message back from me, an invitation to join Google Groups?
I believe it did on my 70s guy email. I joined. I don't know if you see me there because I don't see it in my groups when I go to Google. I replied to the accept invitation, and it would have replied with my 70s guy email, Gmail.
Oh, I do not see that. Oh, pending members. Yes, got it. Just came through. Excellent. Thank you.
I've got that one, or I do have another Gmail account I've set up.
70s, whatever you prefer is fine. So good. I
might send you the other one because I'm trying to get away from that 70s guy email.
Okay. Feel free to join. If you search Google Groups, you'll find DPRG list. Out of search, and feel free to apply to join. And you can delete your other one. You can manage your account. I'm just trying to, overall, my approach is to try and minimize the chance of errors, because, I think if one person does most of them, then you probably get fewer errors, like people think they subscribed, but they actually didn't, or whatever might have been the reason why DPRG, the old DPRG list was reaching so few people, or relatively few people. Okay, so that's that. Thank you. So then, does anyone see a problem with asking for either for people to attach their existing email that they like to a Google account if they don't have it, or to use some Google account that they do have an email for? Okay. All right. So the second item is the meetup, the Google Meet link for this meeting next Tuesday. We may change it, so and we'll advertise on the DPRG list, which is why it's important that everyone is getting some form of the DPRG list. So just watch out, have a look at the, I don't know if you have bookmarked the URL to this meeting, but be aware it might be different for next week on. Can't say yet because we haven't really proven it out. There are several things that we can't do, like record the darn thing. But we're trying to get to a point where DPRG has its own Google Meet, its own capability to open a Google Meet account without requiring a DMS member to be present to open it and let people in, and to where we can assign co-hosts and who can help out in case people are away. A variety of good things come from that. So that's just my heads up to you guys. Please check the website. Worst comes to worst, if we do switch to a new URL, we will still log into the old URL. We'll have someone on that monitoring for anyone who joins who didn't get this message.
Yeah.
Who can redirect them to the new URL. But I want to just give this group of regulars a heads up to keep an eye out for possibly a new URL for this meeting next Tuesday.
You're going to update the dprg.org website with the new link?
Yeah,
that's how I
either update it with a new one or leave it the same if it's not going to change. So yeah. I don't know. We haven't done enough testing on it yet to know which way we're going to go.
Yeah.
Paul, did you get my response back? Or? No.
I do not see you.
Okay, it was the test post from Paul Bussier at gmail.com.
Oh.
That one. And then I even responded to DPRG list testing.
Okay, those both came out of the old DPRG list server.
Okay.
So if you responded to that, let me just check. Let me check my email. Let's see. I did get your reply to the test post from the old DPRG email, and you say, yes, I received it. What I'm looking for, Ray, is, and you can just tell me right here, are you agreeable to getting migrated to the new Google group?
I am.
Okay. Thank you. And I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. That's what I got. So I guess we can move on to open mic and get back to I2C muxes from Adafruit.
I have a question for Paul, unless we're not done with that subject.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, John. Apparently,
I was just going to say, Adafruit makes these nifty different types of cables that have like a stemma QT plug on one end, and this one has just the regular like prototyping things on the other end, and then they also make little extension cable type things you can buy. And if you're in Canada, you can order those off DigiKey because they also carry them. So that's this. If you're trying to use the stemma QT stuff with the ST time of flight sensors, getting a cable like this would be a good good plan.
they've been out of stock on those for quite some time on the Adafruit site. So a lot of the adapter ones.
Yeah, DigiKey, like I say, they carry almost everything that Adafruit makes. So you can often find them in stock there, although that may be different from if you're ordering from the US. I don't know what their shipping policies are down there.
Yeah, I've used the stemma QT to DuPont female, to DuPont male. They've got stemma QT to stemma QT, different lengths.
Yeah.
So, and Seed Studio they make the stemma QT to Grove adapters, rather. So,
I have a couple of the Grove connectors that I use.
Say that again?
I have a couple of the Grove connectors that I use. A little bit bigger than the stemma. Problem I find is trying to find a connector that matches. Everybody and their brother has a connector on a board now.
Yep.
And JST and stemma and what is it? The Quick, I think, is the Seed Studio uses the Quick connector, the Grove, and it's all over the place.
Mm. Yep.
Well, Mike is showing a robot.
Don't know what that is.
He's muted if he's talking.
I unmuted me on my mic, but I believe if you're looking for, there are all these JST connectors, and I put a link somewhere in our Discord and my Discord about a lot of good information on what they're called and what they are. The stuff that fits your breadboard are JST XH. If you look for those, they'll be marked as 0.1 inch or 2.54 millimeters. The next one down is the Grove ones, which some of them have a little bit different connector on them, but the spacing is some of the important things. Those are JST PHs, I believe. PHs, and they're marked at 2 millimeters. And the one that we're calling the Quick or the stemma QT, okay? And there's two varieties of those. By the way, there's two varieties of those PH ones. There's 3-wire and 4-wire, so be careful when you're ordering those. Okay, the one that we're calling Quick from SparkFun and stemma QT from Adafruit, same connector, and I believe those are called JST SH. So if you're looking for the generic pieces of parts and things, and you're not finding what you're needing to find under the branded stemma QT or a Grove or the what is it, the stemma QT Grove or whatever the XH one is called. So you might want to look for that. Look for those bits and pieces, and you may find what you need. Finding a right-angled through-hole JST XH is currently beyond my capability of Googling or Bingling. but I managed to make do with what I needed to get done. So I did not want to learn all of that. And of course, I learned it just enough so I could regurgitate the little bit of knowledge there to you fine folks, and hopefully that helps something in the future.
Yeah, thanks. It's good. But so I have.
Go ahead,
Mike. I think your audio might be. Let's see here. Somebody might need to mute. You're echoing. If you could say something, Mike, before you start talking, let's test your audio.
Oh, this is Mike.
Mike. Okay, that's working now. Good.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, I used a cutie pie on here to hook up to my taped on IMU at the top, and trying to figure out if I really want to make it a permanent addition or not. But the cutie pie is really good, a couple dollars, and it hooks up to the USB port on the. Well, I have a little mux on my. What do you call that? Hub for expanding the Pi's USB ports, but it does a really good job because it's RP2040 based, and so a quick Python script on there is able to talk to the I2C on the IMU and send it to the Pi. I tried to connect it to my time of flight board, but they didn't play together. And I was reading about there's some strangeness with the B&O 55 in terms of the timing, and I think it sort of messed up. It would mess up the time of flight sensors, the VL, whatever they were. Yeah. So that was pretty good, and also I used it over here. Let's see, on the power supply. So this is and this hooked up to my time of flight sensor board, and I was able to read the battery voltage and current on my power supply. So it works pretty good. The QT cable. That's my little input.
Hey, Harold, I think you were asking about this, right? XH connectors, JST XH connector kit.
Yeah, those SH. I wasn't actually looking for that kit, but I was just trying to explain that if you're looking, that's not going to say the quick or the stemma, but those are the connectors you need for the quick or the stemma. Because I have the SH, I have the XH here, the PH here, which I ordered a bunch of these because it had a right angle connector on it, but I ordered a PH instead of an XH, and which is I learned at the wrong time. Wisdom is something you get just after you need it. So,
Okay.
That was one of those things.
All right. So you're not looking for the XH connectors. Okay.
No. I was trying to head off anybody else that was going to make the same mistake that I just made.
I haven't come across that phenomenon yet. Wisdom?
Yeah, that wisdom thing.
Yeah.
Well, what does it say?
I look forward to it someday.
I know, Krim, wisdom has always been trying to catch you, but you've always been faster. Wait a backhanded comment. I saw that the other, I don't know, Dave, somebody's making fun of somebody. How can you compliment somebody? Sound like you're complimenting somebody and not. I think that was the theory there.
And then there's the one about wisdom comes from experience, and experience comes from bad experience.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what am I doing?
Hey, Paul, I was going to ask you if you're planning to redo your RAWs intro stuff at some point.
I wanted to ask if there's interest in that. ROS 2 workshop.
To be honest, I don't remember exactly what I don't think I need a full syllabus description, but exactly what it is that you covered in that. But I'm assuming it's basically a ROS 2 for beginners kind of a thing.
Yeah. So I can just give you a real quick rundown on what that is. And so let me just share here. So its goal was to enable you to use an RPi to collect telemetry from a robot, and telemetry being current speed, heading, distance to waypoint, LED variables, whatever, and be able to save them, plot them, graph them, save them in logs, and that kind of stuff. And I was thinking, so it was originally presented as 4 workshops, configuring a laptop and an RPi, one on Docker, one on the ROS2 CLIs and GUIs, and one on really the ROS API, so programming for ROS in C++ and Python. I sort of had some thoughts on maybe changing, reducing scope, because one of the things that I found to be challenging, and Tom, feel free to chime in here, and Mike with any comments you may have, was there were too many platforms and I felt there were too many platforms, too many modes. So we had an RPi, but then we had the computer with ROS on it, and getting the two to talk together was problematic. And we had multiple OSs involved, and eventually bailed on Windows, but we had some Docker, we had some real OS, and so try to simplify that. And Docker did a session on Docker, but it really is kind of tangential to the main goal, and I thought that could probably be cut down to the point of issue these magic commands and Docker will run. So thinking
Paul,
about...
do you want to stop your presentation real quick, or do you want to show the original? Right now we're just seeing your...
Sorry.
Okay.
And this is probably too small for you to read, right?
Yep.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I spent actually a lot of time on just laptop and RPi configuration, and there were things that I went over that you didn't really need to go over, like the USB serial cable that had all kinds of patches with it. So thinking about trying to make that...
Well, that would have been useful to me a couple weeks ago. For sure. I was struggling with that.
Yeah, just trying to do an RPi and then cut out most of the Docker and just have, these are the commands you do to launch it, and really focus more on the tools and GUI and CLI tools, and then how to build a package, create a custom message, launch file, and so that's what I thought I'd change it, but let me ask, I'll stop presenting now. So it sounds like you might be interested in such a thing. What about...
I'd be interested in the 3 and the 4 for sure.
Who is that speaking?
Kareem, I was saying that
Oh, okay. Okay.
sections 3 and 4 looked very interesting to me.
Okay.
I think Pat was raising his hand.
Yeah.
And Jim from
Yeah, I'd be
Calgary
interested
put
in
in
that.
Slack that he's interested.
Well, maybe I'll throw that out on the list and think about how I might, compress it down some to try and focus more on the ROS 2 stuff and maybe something I thought worked really well in your presentation on Saturday, John, was the walk through the code. When I did it last time, and it was an experiment. I hadn't done this workshop format remotely before, but we ended up. It wasn't very good as video content, I think, because a lot of it was, oh, so and so has got this problem where they're getting in this error in this situation. So then we stop and debug it, and then move on, and so it was very jerky. I was wondering if I might be able to lean more towards what you did, John, while still perhaps offering the hands-on support, which is, I thought was hopefully a helpful thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's harder when people are actually trying to run things. I mean, that worked in that particular context because there wasn't anybody else on the video who was, we weren't trying to get other people running while I was doing that kind of thing. So, it's basically more of a one-way communication plus questions kind of thing, but the questions are more of the generic kind of questions of, how does this work, or what's it, what's this for, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Versus what you're trying to do is get a bunch of people to be able to do something, while you're doing the presentation, which, from a strictly teaching perspective, and I'm not a teacher by any stretch of the imagination, but
me neither.
Those are two very different things. And if you're trying to, most of the successful sort of video courses that I've seen are ones where, don't try and do things while the teacher's talking. Try and pay attention to what the teacher's saying, have a recording of the session so that later on they can go back and try and do these things themselves and go over it half a dozen times and, and maybe get support after the fact through Discord or something like that, where you're not hanging everybody else up because one person can't get something to compile or can't get Docker to work or whatever.
Well, how about Kareem? Sorry.
I was about to say, you might also want to consider not basing it off of a particular hardware platform, and instead sticking with something like, Turtle Sim to get started with. So, it's not a real robot, but you're getting the experience of how to run the tools and
that is exactly what like that. Yeah. That is exactly what we did, Pat. We used Turtle Sim, and we stepped through a good bit of the latter part. The API sections were walking through the ROS tutorials and just doing the exercises. How about Pat and Kareem? How about we take this offline and either maybe chat on Discord,
sure.
And bounce some ideas around and see if we come up with something that might be beneficial?
Works for me.
I'm good with that.
Okay. We'll start up a thread along those lines. Thanks, guys. You're muted if you're talking, Carl.
Yeah, okay. That time was, yeah. We're all quiet. We've been eclipsed, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do people have some stealth mode robots they're working on that they're just trying to hold in the background and they haven't brought up yet? Oh,
Pat's got something.
that does. Stealth mode.
You watch me not paying attention and holding up Pi Dog I'm working on, but it's not going to show anything. It's getting closer.
Pat, Doug, look at that. Pat, your audio's not good. Or you're playing silent.
My audio?
Or maybe you're just in stealth mode, like my audio was.
I'm being quiet.
It's all right.
It's unusual.
I just want to make sure you're okay. Let's check your temperature.
I'll just pull up a link and I can show what I've been just toying with as a walking robot.
Oh.
I haven't really done much, a little bit of building on it. That's it. Where am I presenting? Share. Share tab. So can everybody see that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I've been working on. Very low key. But it's something I was playing with and looking at designing a board for it, just soldering and wiring up a board. And I decided instead, I think I stopped presenting.
You did?
Yep.
Instead, I bought from Imeroni a Servo 2040. So it can control 18 servos. And basically, it runs on MicroPython. You can run it on Arduino, on C++, whatever you want, really. So I've been playing around a little bit with it. I think the last one I got it working on was CircuitPython. I had to play quite a bit with the code from that Fluffbug robot site. I could paste that link for that guy if anyone's interested.
Yeah.
And it was just, that's what we were talking a couple weeks ago about the walking robot contest. So that's
You think you might be able to make that work, Pat?
I don't think by the spring contest, not at all. But if we were talking about possibly a summer contest, August or something, you never know. Maybe. I'm having enough trouble with CanBot right now, so that's why I'm sort of looking at, well, maybe Ross will help out with some of the stuff I'm looking at doing. So that's why I'd be interested in the course. Basically, troubleshooting skills with Ross, because there's like you say, with the bag files and telemetry, there's a lot you can gather and watch. So that's what I've been doing, just banging my head against the desk and slowly trying to make some progress.
Ray showing his blower.
No.
His leaf blower.
He's on mute as well. We're all just muted tonight.
So yeah, it's still here. It's all the pieces are ready to be put together. I've tested it out. There's enough air and enough pressure in the tank to blow like 6 cans the full length of the course, and not, rupture the tank with too much pressure. So I can blow it up to 100 psi, and I think I have like 40 psi at the end. So I don't know if you can see that or not, but it has two go build motors in the front, and that's a solenoid that, opens the, the output of the tank into basically just a copper tube, and it's strong enough to blow a can 10 feet. So, and the claw.
Hey, Ray?
Yeah.
Do I remember right that you don't normally name your robots?
Not really, no.
Well, can I suggest maybe we can have a contest for you? So I'd like to propose like Puffbot or Robot. I mean, Blowbot.
Blowbot. I'm sure it's going to be called all kinds of things.
Let's start with blow.
Blowbot.
Blow hard.
Blow hard.
There you go. It degrades from there, I'm sure.
We're going to help you, Ray. We're going to help you come up with a name, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
John's got, that looks scary. Rocket?
No, it's a submarine.
Submarine. Oh.
Yeah, it's a very, very small submersible robot that I've been working on for many, many, many years. So it has a custom board that I designed, runs MicroPython. It's an ARM board. Although I'm probably, when I rebuild this, I'm probably going to put an ESP32 on this instead of this, so that I can use, because of course one of the problems with robots like this is, once you've got it sealed away, there's no buttons and switches and stuff, so configuring it is a pain in the butt. I have a Bluetooth module on here. This little module right here on the corner is a Bluetooth module. But even with that, it's still a pain in the butt. But this one has an issue. The dive planes and the dive plane and the rudder, which are normally mounted in the back here, I've sort of hand built a linear actuator using these pager gear motors. And it works okay. Like I can move the dive plane and the rudder, but I have there's a magnet, these little pieces that move on the threaded rod are 3D printed, and I have a magnet embedded in each one, and the rare earth magnet, and I have an analog Hall effect sensor on the board, and I'm trying to make closed loop control over the rudder and the dive plane, and unfortunately it just doesn't give me good enough results. So one of the things I've been looking at, I bought a whole pile of these little tiny micro actuators from Ali, things like this, that are basically, a linear actuator with an actual stepper motor. And they have all kinds of different form factors of them. And I bought like a huge stack of different ones to experiment with and stuff. And so it looks like these ones you can actually control them pretty reasonably. So I'm going to try and redesign this whole back end here so that I can use these linear actuators to control the dive plane and the rudder. So, yeah.
Looks like a cool little project.
Does Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, can you actually receive and transmit through water? No,
not at all.
How do you keep the water out of the electronics?
You see, those are a pair of O-rings. And so you put some grease on there and then it just slides into place. And the linear actuators, if you look, you can there's these little brass rods, and those brass rods fit into brass tubes. And if you put a little bit of grease on them, then they slide in and out there. I mean, it certainly won't work at any depth. This is like a pool depth kind of robot, not a ocean explorer.
Not an Ocean Gate Titan submersible?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No. So it's
we're told drug mule.
Yeah. So I have the very first robot that I ever built back in like 2000 is an underwater robot that's significantly bigger. It's about 4 inches in diameter and 2.5 feet long. And I have some videos and stuff on my YouTube channel of that robot. So that was my very first robot, and this is sort of my attempt at miniaturization of it. And this is the second rev of this one. I had an earlier revision of this, actually running in the pool with, it had a AVR chip on it, and whatnot. And there's some video of that running in my YouTube channel as well. So, yeah.
Do they ever pressurize them like with just a few PSI so you can counteract the water pressure? Or?
Theoretically, you can. I mean, water pressure is not really an issue at the depth that I'm running at. The issue with pressurizing is, of course, that makes the end caps want to pop off.
Oh.
So if you're going to pressurize your submersible, you need to have a positive locking mechanism to hold.
Threaded or something?
No, threads don't really work very well, but you could, like, you can see where the O-rings are underneath the plastic there. So if I stretch that out so that I had an extra 1/4 inch there, I could actually drill holes through the shell and into there because it's on this side of the O-ring.
Yeah,
and
pin it,
have some screws, machine screws or whatever to hold it in place. But I'm this is, there's no reason to pressurize this. I mean, this acrylic tube is it's a lot stronger than the 3D printed part, so it's certainly not going to leak or collapse or anything. The 3D printed parts I may end up having to coat with something to help them, or I may end up getting them printed in in nylon. Well, probably not nylon because nylon's hydroscopic, but some material on an SLS printer that's not nylon to really make it waterproof. So, I've built a lot of robots over the years.
Yeah, well, I'm on my third robot, so.
I'm somewhere between 15 and 20. I think you guys have only seen a few of them.
Well, each one you pull out is increasingly more cool than the last one, so that's neat, nice. It's so well crafted.
This is probably one of my most successful robots. This is a mini sumo robot that I built back in 2002, I think. Yeah. 2002. So it's this is all machined and like the sides are cut out of aluminum plate with a hacksaw because I didn't have a CNC mill at that point. So yeah, this was an extremely successful, very fast and aggressive mini sumo.
Yeah, it looks nice and compact with not much ways for other robots to get a hold of it.
Yeah, it's very low and fast. I have a newer revision that I've been working on and off that's even faster, like probably twice as fast as this one. And this is 1.5 inches tall. It's only 1 inch tall, but it's a work in progress. But I haven't found anybody around here who likes doing mini sumo, so.
All right. Well, thanks for that. So we're still in the thick of open mic. We've lost a few people. Are there any other topics we should put out there and carry on? Or going twice? All right. Well, with that, I move to adjourn, I suppose, or I propose we have a nice weekend here. I won't be by next Tuesday, but I think Paul will for sure. Hopefully Doug will be back too. So
Cool.
One way or another, the meeting will run.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Carl.
Take care. You bet.
See you guys.
Bye.